Frustration. Yes, frustration. It will happen. And you as a composer better know how to deal with it. Or better yet, just avoid it altogether.
I'm also going to say a lot of times one of the most frustrating. But the reality is they're all frustrating. Some are equally as frustrating as others. But you have a couple that are at the top of the list. And this is one of them.
Dealing with directors. It can be a great experience or it can be a very frustrating experience.
But when you're working with the director, you went through the spotting session. They told you everything they needed to tell you. You got all the information you thought you needed, and they change up on you. Okay, so let's backtrack real quick.
It's a great thing if a director can come right in knowing what they want. They have a little experience with music or with working with composers. They can detail exactly what they want, what instruments they want to use or not use, tempo, how long, the right sound, the particular key. They're not going to go that far because they probably ain't going to know all that. But you get my point. The more specific this director is, the better off you'll be, because rules are good.
Because at some point in time, a director is going to have to make a decision. And therein lies the frustration.
If you have a director who knows exactly what they want, that's a good thing. And you should take advantage of that. Because as we all know, music is very subjective. And what sounds good to me might not sound good to 5 million other people, and vice versa. So a director telling you that they want something, romantic and soft, that's ambiguous. That can mean a whole lot of things, or that can sound like a whole lot of different things. So if you have a director who comes in knowing exactly what they want, I want, this particular instrument sound. I want it to be this long. I don't want these instruments. I want it to sound like this, reference this thing. And I want that, and I did that, and that. The more information they give you, the better. That's a great thing.
In this profession, you want somebody to tell you what to do.
Don't look at that as micromanaging. Look at that as saving you, the composer, a whole lot of time trying to figure out what they want.
Put aside your ego for a second. Put aside the fact that you're a music creator and you want to create something from your mind and your thoughts. Put that aside for a second. Right now, you're working on somebody else's baby. You're working on somebody else's project. And it's your job as a composer to give them what they want. So you put yourself to the side for right now. Focus on what this director is telling you they want. And it's good that they can come in and tell you exactly what they want. Because what you don't want to happen is for them to not know what they want, depend on you to figure out what they want, only for them to tell you time and time again that ain't what they want.
Frustration comes when you, the composer, are sitting down trying to figure out what somebody else wants. Remember, music is subjective. Who's to say what you come up with, all these people are going to like? Because the reality is, it's never just the director that's going to make the decision. They're going to go to all their people and say, what you think about this? And depending on, what they say, will determine what the director says.
They can give you as much detail as they want. Remember I said rules are good? They can give you as many rules and details and all the things that they relay and that they want or that they think they want. But you're still not a mind reader. And that's what they have to understand.
So you want a director to come in with some rules, with some guidelines, with all the things that they can provide to you, as much detail as they can provide to you, so you don't have to be in your studio thinking. I know it sounds odd to hear, but you don't want to be thinking that much when you're working on a project for a director. They're giving you specific instructions. That's a good thing. The less time you have to spend in your studio thinking, the more time you have to create and give them what they want.
Having a director that knows exactly what they want is a great thing. That minimizes room for error. That minimizes room for you having to go back to the drawing board time and time again because you think you created what they said they wanted, only to go back to them and they say, no, that's not what I want. Now you got to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So to avoid all that, try to get a director to give you as much detail as they possibly can, as many rules or stipulations or whatever you want to call it. Get as much information from them as you possibly can, because that way you don't really have to think as much. I know it might sound weird to say that, but trust me, you don't want to have to think as much. You want to be able to see the picture, have a spotting session, talk to the director, and go straight to getting your ideas formulating and go straight to working. But the reality is, without having all those fine details from the director, you're not going to really be able to do that without having to sit and think. And that's where frustration starts coming in. It starts creeping in. The longer you start thinking about what to do, you also start thinking, dang, I wish the director knew what the hell they wanted. If they knew what they wanted, I wouldn't have to sit here wasting time thinking about what they want. Frustration.
The worst thing is to have a director who don't know what they want, right? They don't have a clue. They might think they know what they want, but they don't have a clue what they want. And they tell you as much as they can tell you, and they expect you to decipher what they're saying. And so let's play that out for a second. So I'm the director, and I'm telling you, for this section, I don't know. I think I want something soft, something romantic right here, and that'll be that. Well, soft and romantic is ambiguous by itself. That can mean a whole world of things. But all the director knows is soft and romantic. That's all they told you. So now you go back to the studio and you create what you feel is soft and romantic. Go back, take it to the director. Nah, that's not. I said soft and romantic. You're like, well, this is soft and romantic. They're like, but it's not my soft and romantic. Okay, rewrite number one.
Back and forth.
You go back, rewrite it again. Come back to them. Yeah, that's soft, but it's not as romantic as I'm picturing. Well, what the hell you picturing then? Tell me what you picturing. Well, that thing that's like the Titanic, that section, that part in Titanic, something like that. Oh, you want that? All right, I got you. Rewrite number 2.
Back and forth.
Rewrite number 3.
Back and forth.
Rewrite number 4.
Back and forth.
Is this what you want, Mr. Director? Well, all right.
Giving them 3 samples of what they said they wanted, only for them to say, well, no, now that I hear it, I don't think that's it. Here we go. So now you got to come back, get 3 more samples, and so the cycle goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
True story. I had this producer who was a first-time producer of a film. She wasn't the director, but she was the producer on it. And we're in the listening session where I'm playing them the cues. And in the session, all the people in there, she says, well, now this is after a couple of rewrites, right? This is after I created everything as close to what she described she wanted as possible. And in the middle of the listening session, she says, well, could you make it cooler? I said, can you define cooler? And this is the kind of things we go through as film composers. What I should have done was took out the flash drive, went to the refrigerator, stuck the flash drive in the freezer, and looked at her and said, is it cooler now?
But the more direction that you have from them, the more you can say, look, this is you saying what you wanted right here. This is what you said you wanted. This is what I gave you. Next cue. Track might not be a good word for it, but you kind of pin them down a little bit and making a final decision, because what directors fail to realize is making music actually takes time. I guess they don't understand that, and not just them. In their defense, most people who don't make music don't understand that a lot of times it's not as easy as it sounds, as the completed, song or track or piece sounds. So nobody realized how much work goes into it except for us, the composers.
At that point, it's up to you as the film composer to sit them down and explain this right here.
At some point in time, after you go through rewrite after rewrite after rewrite, you're going to have to say, look, if you knew how to create what you wanted for your picture, then you would do it. And because you don't, that's why you hired me. So you're going to have to defer to my better judgment. Out of these 3 or 4 samples, you pick the one that you feel is the best one. We can't keep going back and forth over every little detail that you think may or may not be missing. While they think they know what they want, once they hear what you come up with, they'll go back and say, oh, well, now that I hear it, I don't think that's it. Let's try something else.
Time is of the essence, and the longer they delay and procrastinate making the decision, having you rewrite after rewrite,
back and forth,
the longer the process takes. And then they'll be blaming you for going past deadline. So you gotta nip that in the bud as soon as possible. It's so, 1 or 2 rewrites are fine, because it's your job to give them what they want, true enough. But at some point, and this is the crucial point that you got to get them to understand, at some point they got to make a decision. Not everything is going to be perfect. It's impossible for 2 people to come up with the same musical melody or theme or tone or, whatever combination. That's just impossible. That's never going to happen. And because it's so subjective, a director has to defer to you're the professional in this field, so let them defer to you, and you got to relay that to them.
You yourself can't even put down in music form what you think you want, so how is somebody else supposed to do it? The only thing that somebody else, you the composer, can do is come up with the closest rendition to what they want. And if you get 3 or 4 of those renditions, then Mr. and Mrs. Director has to make a decision on which one is best out of those 4, so you can move on with the project.
They don't understand that it takes time to create music. No one understands that except for film composers, that it takes a lot of time. So when you're spending 4 or 5 hours on one cue, you go back to them and they don't like it for whatever reason. That's another 3-4 hours you got to do fixing it or creating something totally new. Well, after 4 or 5 of those, you done spent 3 or 4 days on one cue. Can't happen. You got to nip that in the bud. So it's up to you to get them to understand that this is what they're paying you for, to create things like this as close to. Nothing is going to be perfect, but it's your job as a composer to create something as close to what they want as possible. Because if they could do it, they would, but they can't. So here they have you.
Decision making is the bottom line. The director is going to have to make a decision on a piece of music that might not necessarily be 100% what they want, but as close as you can deliver. As the composer, it's your job to be able to relay that. If you can't talk to the director, then you might as well find something else to do.
If you ever want to check out some of my music and things that I've worked on in the past, feel free to visit my website. It's www.jamiecoleman'smusic.wix.com/composer. And feel free to check me out on IMDb, social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Composer Jamie C. That's my handle on most of them. Or just look up Composer Jamie Coleman. So with that, peace.